Thank you for your interest in today's webinar. Today's presentation is focused on the enhancements we've made to our professional services automation solution. My name is Karina Bauer, and I'm a Senior Enterprise Customer Success Manager here at Replicon. I'm also joined by my colleague Santosh Kumar, who is the Senior Manager of our Solution Engineering and Implementation Services. Okay, so in terms of the agenda, we'll be reviewing Replicon's new Billing Workbench and contract modeling capabilities. This review will explore the challenges that professional services firms face with traditional billing methodologies and how Replicon overcomes these challenges. We'll then move into a demo of the Billing Workbench. Following the demo, we'll reconvene with a discussion around the new revenue recognition standards affecting both public and private enterprises, and how Replicon natively supports compliance with IFRS 15 and ASC 606. Finally, we'll conclude with the demo of the Revenue Recognition Workbench. All right, so just a little bit of housekeeping before we begin. You're going to be on mute during the presentation, but there will be a Q&A session midway through the presentation and again at the end. If you have any questions at any time during the webinar, please feel free to submit them in the questions box, and we'll make sure that they're answered. Okay, so we're going to start by looking at the contract modeling and billing workbench. But before we dive in, we'd like to conduct two quick polls. For the first poll, we'd be interested in learning what types of contracts you typically use. We're going to give you 30 seconds before we close the polls. Please go ahead and start the polls. All right, so let's see the results. All right, so it looks like a vast majority, almost 50%, chose A, simple fixed bid, but there is also a significant proportion that chose C, which is a combination of complex and simple. And then again, 15% with complex contracts. So there seems to be a range. That kind of leads into our next question. I'll move on to the next slide. For the next poll, we'd be interested in knowing what percentage of time results in manual effort to revise your billing data. Again, we're going to give you 30 seconds to submit your responses. All right, let's start the poll. All right, let's see the results. So 60% of you chose A, that's 0 to 25%, and then B comes in second with about 50% in manual effort. So hopefully what you're going to see is throughout the presentation, we're going to be able to alleviate a lot of that manual effort through the enhancements that we've made. I'll start right away then. In terms of, I just want to make sure you guys can see my screen here. Perfect. So I think in terms of projects based on a monthly retainer, you might be looking at something like a contract that affords you $50K in revenue per month. And traditional bill rates can handle simple contracts like this one using fixed bid time and material. But what happens if we add a layer of complexity? So for example, a monthly retainer plus time and material for hours worked over a certain threshold. This might look like the payment of $50,000 per month up to 1,000 hours over and above which that you bill at a rate of $100 per hour. The moment that you introduce that extra layer of complexity, all of a sudden the traditional system fails. Let's take another example. Does your team have a creative sales guy? We all know one. Let's imagine that he sold a deal with a built-in project delay discount of 10%. So while the initial project was poised to secure 40% margins, project delays result in the project lead enforcing the 10% discount. Meanwhile, on the tail end of the project, the billing team extends yet another 10% discount. So when all is said and done, your profit margins have been reduced from 40% to 20%. Unfortunately, this scenario isn't uncommon. And the biggest culprits are the processes that are handled outside of the system. When requests and routing are handled outside the system, there's really no defined workflow, and so nobody has visibility into the downstream impact. Traditional systems simply don't have the mechanisms in place to effectively handle billing discounts, edits, and the approvals that directly impact your bottom line. Rather, to meet the requirements of complex contracts, billing and finance teams are faced with the daunting task of working with multiple systems and ad hoc processes. In fact, oftentimes discounts, exceptions, and validations are handled manually in Excel. And because they're manual in nature, there's no tried and tested workflow attached to these processes. This in turn increases the chance of errors where multiple revisions and invoices need to be processed. For billing and finance teams, it's a living nightmare, and the economic consequences are all too real. Manual adjustments increase admin overhead. The billing and finance teams are forced to review all the time data and decide which contracts need to be applied outside of the system. In the absence of a defined workflow, there's a lot of back and forth with project and client managers. As these engagements continue, the timeline expands and we see delays to billing. In these situations, best case scenario, you incur admin overhead to resolve the billing errors. But worst case, there's revenue leakage, and no company wants to leave money on the table. So to help solve for these problems, we've taken our existing professional services capabilities to the next level. Replicon has created a single platform that allows many different contract models to be supported within the application. Now we can handle just about any billing scenario under one roof. With our new contract modeling and billing workbench capabilities, the professional services automation solution delivers more value to further streamline your billing workflows. These new capabilities will help professional services firms manage their end-to-end billing requirements within a unified platform. We take you full circle from applying contracts all the way to the approval processes that allow you to invoice with confidence. We also recognize that not all billing scenarios are complex. Our customers can continue to enjoy bill rates for simple contracts, but you now have the added option to configure contracts irrespective of complexity right into the system. In addition, the system allows you to manage discounts and run approval workflows based on your billing data. So this in turn will ensure increased transparency and auditability while significantly streamlining billing operations. So for example, you can actually configure the system based on a threshold of say 10K to route directly to billing for invoicing. And on the other hand, for amounts over 10K, real-time routing can be implemented to obtain approval from the finance director. It's really all up to you. All right, so now for the demo, over to you, Santosh.
Thanks, Karina. If you can pass the control to me. Can you confirm if you can see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Perfect. Thank you. So for everyone, this is the project summary screen. Most of you would already be aware of this screen. If you look at it, the reason I went to the screen is I just wanted to show you some new features that we have added, components that we have added to the screen, something called as total contract value. So this is my total contract value. This could be a time and material, fixed fee, or a combination of monthly retainer and all those things. This is my total contract value. So what we have done really is we have built a platform that could handle complex contracts. So I'm just going to quickly go into the contracts clauses that we have already built to show you at a high level what we have so far built. So these are the different contract clauses that we have built in terms of how we want to bill our clients, and each one of them have different attributes. With the current setup, if you set up a project as time and material, it's always going to be time and material. You cannot have a combination of a fixed bid and a time and material and stuff like that. So I'm going to quickly show you guys how I would create a project with a complex contract. I already have some setup over here. I'm going to come to those projects a little later. I'm just going to quickly show you guys how we can set up the project. Let's say this project starts from August 1st and it ends on September, and the client is Advantage Technology. And if you look at it, the traditional way of billing was either fixed fee, time and material, or non-billable. So now what we have is we have incorporated the billing contracts within the same environment, which does not disturb your existing setup. It's an added feature onto your existing setup. So I'm saying I'm just going to say monthly amount with single rate time and material. I'm just going to create this project. So what we have introduced is instead of the billing tab over here, we've called billing contract. So let's say every month I get $1,000 for this project for support and services. And I have an expense markup. I say 1.2%. And every hour entered on this project is billed at $50. I could add this contract clause and save it. So what will happen is every hour entered on this project automatically gets multiplied with the hourly billing rate, and every month on first when I try to generate an invoice for this customer, $1,000 will automatically get added onto my invoice to say, hey, you know what, this is your monthly recurring fee that you have to pay to us. So there could be an added clause that you have. The client negotiates the contract really well, and the client says, you know what, I'm going to pay you 50% of the contract value upfront, and I'm going to pay you the remaining ones after you complete my project, and I'll pay you time and material for whatever work you do. I could go ahead, introduce another complex workflow here. I'm saying after I complete this project, I'm going to get $20,000. So in simple words, I'm having all workflows defined at one project with no hassles. If I had to set this up in an old setup, I'll have to create separate projects for each of these things, or I have to manually go ahead into the billing workflow and create these stuff. I have to manually add these line entry items. So what this does is it basically calculates the data set. Like I said, I've already created a few projects over here. I'm just going to take this website redesign project. This is one of the common scenarios which I've literally seen with my clients, the milestone based billing. So what happens is, uh, after I complete milestone one, I would get 30% of my payment. After I complete milestone two, I could get another 30%. Then after I complete the third milestone, I would get another 40%. So we could handle those also using our contract flow. I've just set it up as flat amount. Every milestone completion, I would get $5,000. So we could have a combination of contracts built into our system that could handle any complex billing workflows. This is in terms of the contracts. The next aspect which Karina was talking about was approval workflows within the billing processes. So today, the traditional way is all the timesheets are approved. The project managers and supervisors approve the timesheet. The finance managers consolidate those timesheets and add it to the invoice and create an invoice. What we have done is we have done an enhancement over there too. We could define workflows, billing process workflows. In today's example, I've created a workflow that is a two-stage approval process. So stage one could be the project manager creates the billing line item, tells, you know what, hey finance team, my team has completed 50% of the work on this project. This is what I expect to be built, and the finance team could be the stage one approver. The finance team reviews it and says, okay, I'm good. And the finance CFO, the CEO, the second stage approver, who basically tells, okay, you know what, whatever calculations you guys have done is good, and it's good to go forward. Again, it's not limited only to these stage of approvals. If you want to set your own, you could just click on set workflows, and you could create your own custom workflow also. For today's example, I'm using the two-stage approval workflow. In addition to contracts, we have added more enhancement onto our billing tab. That's called the Billing Workbench. So this is the billing summary. We've enhanced a little more onto the billing summary as to how the data looks, and this is the Billing Workbench tab uh, that you would see over here. As a project manager or as a finance manager, I would see all the items that I could bill for a specific client. I'm saying I'm just going to, for the example's sake, I'm going to use this. I'm saying Advantage Technology Sales Enablement Task as QA, $3,900. I want to bill this data. I click on bill this data. Then it goes into the billing workflow for approval. So if I go into my billing processes, I would see all of the data sets that are available for me to go ahead and approve, reject, invoice. Now I'm going to pick up the one that I had uh, pushed over here. This is the one that we had pushed over here. I'm just going to uncheck everything. I'm just going to only focus on this. Now it says the status is open. You know what? I do not want to charge the customer 3,250 because I did not complete the work in a timely fashion. The client is going to have an argument with me. I'm going to change this to $3,000. I've made this change as a first level submitter. And if I want to see what is the status is open. If I click on the open status, it tells me what I've created it. It's open. Now I have to submit it. Stage one approver, stage two approver, then it finalizes. Now I see this. Okay, this looks good. I've made the changes. Now I could go ahead and submit this. Now in my case, if you I'm the stage one approver, I'm the stage two approver too. That's why if you look at it, the status automatically changes to stage one approver. Then if I say approve, stage two approver, the stage two approver approves, then it is finalized to be added onto our invoice. So adding this line item onto our invoice is no different than how you guys have been using Replicon before. It would just add it onto the invoice the same in a similar fashion. Again, if you do not want to use our invoicing system, if you do not want to send invoices using Replicon, you could just go ahead and download this data into a CSV format, and you could send it into your financial system or whatever system you guys are going to be using for that. Uh, Overall, the workflow is very simple. We could handle any complex billing scenarios. Apart from the timesheet approval flow, we have checks in places for a billing workbench data flow where we can involve the finance managers and the team who's responsible for sending the invoices to the customers to be a part of the approval process. Rather than approving all timesheets, they just have to review and approve those invoice line items, and it's done. That's at a high level in terms of what I wanted to talk through. I'm going to pass the control on to Karina. Over to you, Karina. Karina, can you hear me?
Yep. Can everybody see my
Okay.
screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Perfect. Okay. So thank you so much, Santosh.
No
Bear with
problem.
me. All right, so what we found is that many systems are inflexible, forcing organizations to reconcile their processes within the confines of a rigid solution. Replicon's configurable framework gives you the freedom to define a solution that supports your unique business workflows. But we've taken it one step further. We've taken a completely manual process and automated it within a flexible, unified system. With Replicon's professional services automation solution, billing and finance teams will see a dramatic reduction in the admin overhead that used to be required to manage and apply complex contract and billing rates. Meanwhile, there'll be a huge decrease in billing errors and corrections. And since approval routing is configurable, they can be managed in real time, improving accuracy and traceability. So the Billing Workbench is available in our professional services automation solution. If you already have our PSA solution and you're interested in using these features, simply contact your customer success manager to turn them on. Your CSM is also your go-to person to help you evaluate an upgrade. So before we move on to the next section, I would like to see if we have any questions pertaining to contract modeling in the Billing Workbench. So I'm just going to open up our questions box. So it looks like we have a couple questions here. So the first one is, what version of Replicon is this, and what is the cost for us to upgrade so we can take advantage of these features? Contract modeling and the billing workbench are available through our professional services automation solution, which was launched on our Gen 3 platform. So any customer on our Gen 3 platform can very easily evaluate and upgrade. Alternatively, if you're on Gen 2, you can upgrade to Gen 3 very easily and then access this product suite. The cost to upgrade, meanwhile, can vary range, right? Because it really depends on the complexity and any customizations that you might have. So I think it really needs to be evaluated on a case by case basis. And again, your customer success manager is really your go to person to help you with this. All right, so let's take a look at the next question. So somebody arrived late, and they wanted to know when this functionality becomes available. It is available today. So if you're interested, again, contact your CSM and they can help you. All right, so we'll move on with the presentation. Oh, I went ahead of myself here. All right, so we're going to cover Replicon's new revenue recognition workbench in the second half of this presentation. As many of you may know, in 2014, the International Accounting Services Board issued new standards for recognizing revenue, IFRS 15 and ASC 606. The goal was simple: harmonize revenue recognition practices so that auditors and investors can make easy apples to apples comparisons. For public companies, these guidelines were instituted January of 2018, and for compliance for private companies will actually take effect this year, January 2019. Prior to these new measures, international and domestic accounting standards lacked uniformity. Accounting requirements for reporting revenue varied by industry, by geography, and even by market. So because revenue is a critical metric used to evaluate a company's financial performance, these discrepancies resulted in incompatible accounting results for economically similar transactions. In other words, it became very difficult for auditors and investors to gauge financial health and overall performance. Take the following simplified example. Imagine a 3-year project which results in a lump sum payment in year 3. In this scenario, using cash accounting to determine company health, you'd see poor performance during the first 2 years and then a sudden unsustainable surge in year 3. IFRS 15 and ASC 606 were jointly issued to remedy situations just like this one. The new standard creates a global framework that enhances transparency through one simple principle: revenue must be recognized in the period in which it is earned. Okay, so we'd like to conduct another poll to learn how much of an impact you feel the new standards will have on your business. So we're going to open up the polls again for 30 seconds. Okay, let's see the results. Okay, so 19% of you said a large impact, and 53%, so a huge proportion of you said be little impact. This kind of leads into our next question, and it will be interesting to see why a lot of you chose be little impact. So for our next question, we'd like to know how you're planning on handling the new standards. So again, we'll open up the polls for 30 seconds starting now. All right, let's see the results. So there's a nice even distribution here with people having to use manual processes or they have an ERP system, and D, not sure. So because of that, what we feel strongly about is that these enhancements and these workflows really belong in a professional services automation solution. And we hope that as we walk you through the presentation, you'll see why. But maybe that'll change your mind frame. And for those of you who selected A, manual processes, we can alleviate a lot of that and take that burden off your shoulders. So revenue recognition workflows tend to run in parallel with billing activities. But just like billing, most revenue recognition activities are handled manually or outside the firm's core solution. For professional services firms, a PSA solution or system is at the core of their ecosystem. It houses all their relevant project, resource, and billing information. So this is really where it makes the most sense to enable revenue recognition capabilities right at the source of truth. In the absence of a solution equipped to handle revenue recognition, teams deal with multiple systems and ad hoc processes. And as a result, the entire revenue workflow is not informed in real time by the actual status of your projects. So this can lead to multiple errors and reworks to set up and manage the revenue workflow. The economic consequences for revenue teams with manual processes are significant. Manual processes are prone to error and tend to increase admin overhead. Best case scenario, after tedious review, the administrator identifies the errors and duplicates his or her efforts to redo the process in a compliant manner. Worst case scenario, they don't catch the errors at all, and the organization must face compliance related issues, including penalties and damage to their reputation. So Replicon mitigates these challenges by enabling revenue recognition capabilities in our professional services automation solution. Our PSA solution allows you to recognize revenue when services are rendered and in an amount that is proportionate to what has been delivered at that point. Because a PSA solution operates at the core of any professional services firm, real time visibility and control over revenue should be part and parcel of the system. Replicon's PSA solution automates the entire revenue workflow so that it remains informed in real time by the actual status of your projects. So these new capabilities provide professional services firms with end-to-end revenue management in one unified platform. Out of box, using the percentage of completion method, Replicon supports IFRS 15 and ASC 606. Instead of having to pull data out of the system, Replicon allows services organizations to easily map revenue forecasts, make real time adjustments using actual data, and complete reconciliations with contracts, WIP, and billing workflows. For professional services firms, revenue recognition needs to be close to the core. That core is the PSA solution, so it really makes sense for it to be handled here. All right, so back to Santosh for a demonstration of the revenue recognition workbench.
Thanks, Karina. Can you confirm if you can see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so again, I'm going to start from the project summary screen because this is one place where the project managers or the administrators or the finance manager could get at a high level understand what's really happening on their project. If I'm looking at the first project, my total contract value is $25,000. The hours that I've spent is 27 hours. What has it costed me to complete this 27 hours? $6,000 plus dollars, and what have I billed so far to this client, and what is the revenue that I've recognized so far. So, like how we had the billing contracts, we have also the flexibility to add all the revenue contracts that you guys want to be added. Like Karina mentioned, we have created a revenue contract which is compliant with the laws. So this is basically the percentage complete. It could be time or money. So if I say my project is estimated at 10,000 hours, if I complete 5,000 hours, then 50% of my project is considered as completed, so I can recognize 50% of the revenue. How do I use this? Similar flow. When I click on Add New Project, along with the billing type, the contracts, I also get the revenue type. I could select the percentage of complete, and I could go ahead and mention the contract value over here, the total contract value over here, to indicate as to when should I recognize revenue. So how do I report on it? All of our reportings will have the ability to do this. So we have added additional components onto the billing tab for the typically for the finance managers or the project administrator. That's called Revenue Workbench. So most companies do revenue recognition once in a month, trying to understand what is the amount that they've earned versus what they've already forecasted for. It could for specific clients you could do it in a specific manner, or for projects you could do in a specific manner. That's why we have all these three filters. So let's assume I run my revenue recognition first of every month. So today is August 1st. If I go to August 1st, if I click on refresh data, it creates it'll pull up all the projects that I have where I can recognize revenue. The negative indication is because I had over recognized it last time when I had created a revenue recognition run. That's why it's adding the negative indication and stuff like that in terms of telling where I'm going to earn what. So I could go ahead, create a revenue run. It simply creates a revenue run, and I could go ahead, have it in a draft status. I could then again leave it in a draft status for somebody to review it and approve it and say, yes, this is what we have recognized so far. Or if if I feel everything is good, I could just mark this as completed, and I could just download this and push it onto my financial system. To say, okay, this is the total revenue that was recognized for the current month or for the current period, and the total recognition revenue for the overall projects. So, whatever we have seen today in terms of the billing contracts and all of those attributes are available in our out of the box reports. So, most of you who already have used Replicon reports must know Replicon reports are really vast subject. So, we've already added those basic templates, the invoice detail templates and revenue recognition summary and all those things. All the reports remain standard. You could report on any field that you want to, and you could just go ahead and extract the data into CSV or a PDF format, or you could go ahead and schedule this out to go out to specific people on a scheduled basis. At a high level, this is what I wanted to cover. I'm going to pass this over to Karina to see if you guys have any additional questions. Karina, back to you.
Perfect. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. So Replicon is the system of record for your time assets. Time is the primary driver of costs. Since we're closest to the data, it makes sense that we support revenue recognition calculations under one unified roof. And we have. With our platform based approach, you can manage when revenue is recognized and how much revenue is recognized at any given time. Not only do we automate the process to enhance visibility, we also extend to you our configurable framework. We adhere to your unique business processes while helping you map revenue in a compliant manner. That's the flexibility Replicon offers. So as with Replicon's new contract modeling and billing workbench capabilities, the revenue recognition workbench is available in our professional services automation product. Simply contact your CSM to turn it on or evaluate an upgrade. So I want to thank everyone for your time today. If you do have any additional questions, that come up after the presentation, again, don't hesitate to reach out to myself. I'm a customer success manager here at Replicon, or if you have a rep already assigned to you, reach out to them with any questions that might come up. Hope you all have a great day. Thank you so much.